All right, a rousing crowd there and an upbeat message right there at Roosevelt Island. This is where Hillary Clinton at any moment now is to walk on that stage and on that podium. Yes, she's running for president, and it's been the case for about 10 weeks officially now. But in just a few moments, she'll be giving her first major speech at her first major rally. CNN's senior political correspondent Brianna Keeler is on Roosevelt Island in New York, where the rally is being held. And senior Washington correspondent Jeff Zeleny is joining us from Marshalltown, Iowa, at a watch party there. So, Brianna, first to you, where you are at the main event. This is her opportunity to really say, I know your experience, and I'm here for you. What else are we expected to hear from her?
That's right, and she's also, not only is she going to try to make the case that she is the person to fight for the middle class, she's going to try to reintroduce herself. But you mentioned, Fred, that Hillary Clinton has been a candidate now for 10 weeks. You almost wouldn't know it. She's been doing all of these really small events, little roundtables, very low-key, and this is the big kickoff. As far as her campaign sees this, it's almost really the big start of it. And there's so much pressure on this event, hoping, of course, that the crowd is enthusiastic and that her message is well received. I will tell you, this is sort of an area that is confined by either side of Roosevelt Island, which is a very thin spit of an island here in the East River. There is an overflow area that is not being used. There are not enough people here to be in the overflow area where there's a jumbotron and speakers over there. But the case she's going to make is a populist one. She's fighting for the middle class, and as she reintroduces herself, she's actually going to be looking back in time to her time as a younger woman and really trying to, I think, stand apart from her husband in that. She'll be talking about her mother, Dorothy Rodham, who really had a very hard scrabble upbringing, and she'll be channeling some of that as inspiration for the kind of people that she's fighting for. Important to note, Chelsea Clinton will be here. Bill Clinton will be here. He's not expected to speak, just a sign that she's trying to kind of distance herself from what would really be a Clinton dynasty if she is the nominee and she is elected, Fred.
And so, Brianna, I can't help but overlook, there's a little symbolism there, a lot of symbolism with the skyline of New York back there, this red, white, and blue kind of, field, the crowd right there. And then when you listen to the music, it's very current, it's upbeat, it's hip, it's now, in contrast to, when the Clintons first ran, or Bill Clinton first ran, and the kind of the baby boomer generation music. This really just kind of is a page turner, if you will, if anything, symbolically, isn't it?
That's right. So what's interesting is it's kind of top 40 here all the way when it comes to the music. She's here on Roosevelt Island, which harkens back to the populist message of FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt, who she talks about all the time, a big icon for her. But I'll tell you also, earlier we heard, and I think we'll probably hear it a little later, new renditions, modern renditions of old songs. So I like to think that there's also some symbolism there when you hear a reggae version of a Beatles song. Maybe we'll hear that again today.
Okay, and people were getting excited there. Bill Clinton now entering. I think that's the back of Chelsea Clinton's head as well. You made reference to them being there front and center stage, but it'll be Hillary Clinton's moment at the microphone. So Jeff Zeleny in Iowa, where there is a watch party underway. People are anticipating and they're at the edge of their seats. What do they want to hear? What are they looking for? Why do they feel a closeness given the distance?
Well, hey, Frederica, Hillary Clinton is going to come to Iowa after she gives her speech today because Iowa is the most important state for her, at least in the short term. The Iowa caucuses next February launch her road to the White House, and she knows that she has to perform strongly here in Iowa. She remembers so well 8 years ago, she placed third in the Iowa caucuses, and it really complicated the rest of her run for the White House. So what her supporters are trying to do is strike up some enthusiasm here. But I can tell you, Frederica, that is going to be a challenge. We are here in Marshalltown, Iowa. It's a town about an hour from Des Moines, and there are only a handful of people inside this watch party. There are watch parties across the country. We picked this one randomly, and there are about 5 people inside who are watching this. Certainly many more will be on hand tomorrow when Hillary Clinton is giving a big speech at the Iowa State Fair. But her challenge is enthusiasm. She's not in this race alone. There are other Democrats running, and Democrats here want to see a contest.
And so, Jeff, as I continue to talk to you, in this live shot, people can't see it right now, but there was a hint. There she is, of Hillary Clinton in a beautiful, blue there, kind of standing out in the crowd, which is waving flags. There you see her more prominently as she's making her way to the stand there. And so, Jeff, you mentioned these watch parties happening across the country. Are you also saying that it's the Hillary Clinton campaign that has kind of commandeered these watch parties? There she is, front and center there, clapping and waving to the crowd there. I'll let you talk until she does. Go ahead, Jeff.
Right. The campaign is trying to do watch parties across the country. They're trying to organize supporters for Hillary Clinton. That's what it takes to win a Democratic primary contest. Good organization. So they want people tuned in. They want them plugged in. One of the problems here, Frederica, is that they know she doesn't have much of a competition in this Democratic contest. So it's harder to get people enthused and signed up. They know they still have time. But the Clinton campaign is trying to drum up enthusiasm, trying to make this an urgent case. So that's why we're going to hear her sort of reframe her candidacy, explain her rationale today for why she wants to be president, why she wants to run for president. And we're going to hear more Rodham in this speech than Clinton in this speech. As Brianna said earlier, we are going to hear her talk about her family, her mother, much more than she did in 2008. In 2008, she presented herself as a strong leader, ready to go. This time, she's going to explain her whole career and show a few of her personal side and her vulnerability side. We'll see if that works, Frederica.
All right, and there goes that symbolism again with that song, Brave, talking about I want to be brave, I am brave, and you talking about how she will make reference to her very brave mother, one of very humble beginnings, at the age of 14, being a nanny, working in domestic work, trying to make ends meet.
Exactly, and she's going to show that she is a fighter. Hillary Clinton is going to show that she has fought her whole career. What they're trying to do here is distance themselves a little bit from the Clinton controversy.
Well, Jeff,
her biography.
You are now being upstaged by Hillary Clinton. Sorry. Let's listen in to what Hillary Clinton has to say there at a rousing crowd there at Roosevelt Island, New York.
Thank you so very, very much. It is wonderful to be here with all of you, to be in New York with my family, with so many friends, including so many New Yorkers who gave me the honor of serving them in the Senate for 8 years. To be right across the water from the headquarters of the United Nations, where I represented our country many times. To be here in this beautiful park, dedicated to Franklin Roosevelt's enduring vision of America, the nation we want to be, and in a place with absolutely no ceilings. President Roosevelt's four freedoms are a testament to our nation's unmatched aspirations and a reminder of our unfinished work at home and abroad. His legacy lifted up a nation and inspired presidents who followed. One is the man I served as Secretary of State, Barack Obama. And another is my husband, Bill Clinton. Two Democrats, guided by, that will make him so happy. They were and are two Democrats, guided by the fundamental American belief that real and lasting prosperity must be built by all and shared by all. President Roosevelt called on every American to do his or her part, and every American answered. He said, "There's no mystery about what it takes to build a strong and prosperous America. Equality of opportunity, jobs for those who can work, security for those who need it, the ending of special privilege for the few, the preservation of civil liberties for all, a wider and constantly rising standard of living." That still sounds good to me. It's America's basic bargain. If you do your part, you ought to be able to get ahead. And when everybody does their part, America gets ahead too. That bargain inspired generations of families, including my own. It's what kept my grandfather going to work in the same Scranton lace mill every day for 50 years. It's what led my father to believe that if he scrimped and saved, his small business printing drapery fabric in Chicago could provide us with a middle-class life, and it did. When President Clinton honored the bargain, we had the longest peacetime expansion in history, a balanced budget, and for the first time in decades, we all grew together, with the bottom 20% of workers increasing their incomes by the same percentage as the top 5%. When President Obama honored the bargain, we pulled back from the brink of depression, saved the auto industry, provided health care to 16 million working people, and replaced the jobs we lost faster than the historical average after a financial crash. But it's not 1941 or 1993 or even 2009. We face new challenges in our economy and our democracy. We're still working our way back from a crisis that happened because time-tested values were replaced by false promises. Instead of an economy built by every American, for every American, we were told that if we let those at the top pay lower taxes and bend the rules, their success would trickle down to everyone else. What happened? Well, instead of a balanced budget with surpluses that could have eventually paid off our national debt, the Republicans twice cut taxes for the wealthiest, borrowed money from other countries to pay for 2 wars, and family incomes dropped. You know where we ended up. Except it wasn't the end. As we have since our founding, Americans made a new beginning. You worked extra shifts, took second jobs, postponed home repairs. You figured out how to make it work. And now people are beginning to think about their future again. Going to college, starting a business, buying a house, finally being able to put away something for retirement. So we're standing again, but we all know we're not yet running the way America should. You see corporations making record profits with CEOs making record pay, but your paychecks have barely budged. While many of you are working multiple jobs to make ends meet, you see the top 25 hedge fund managers making more than all of America's kindergarten teachers combined, and often paying a lower tax rate. So, you have to wonder, when does my hard work pay off? When does my family get ahead? When? I say now. Prosperity can't be just for CEOs and hedge fund managers. Democracy can't be just for billionaires and corporations. Prosperity and democracy are part of your basic bargain, too. You brought our country back. Now it's time, your time, to secure the gains and move ahead. And you know what? America can't succeed unless you succeed. That is why I am running for President of the United States. Here on Roosevelt Island, I believe we have a continuing rendezvous with destiny. Each American and the country we cherish. I'm running to make our economy work for you and for every American, for the successful and the struggling, for the innovators and inventors, for those breaking barriers in technology and discovering cures for diseases, for the factory workers and food servers who stand on their feet all day, for the nurses who work the night shift, for the truckers who drive for hours and the farmers who feed us, for the veterans who served our country, for the small business owners who took a risk, for everyone who's ever been knocked down but refused to be knocked out. I'm not running for some Americans, but for all Americans. Our country's challenges didn't begin with the Great Recession, and they won't end with the recovery. For decades, Americans have been buffeted by powerful currents. Advances in technology and the rise of global trade have created whole new areas of economic activity and opened new markets for our exports, but they have also displaced jobs and undercut wages for millions of Americans. The financial industry and many multinational corporations have created huge wealth for a few by focusing too much on short-term profit and too little on long-term value, too much on complex trading schemes and stock buybacks, too little on investments in new businesses, jobs, and fair compensation. Our political system is so paralyzed by gridlock and dysfunction that most Americans have lost confidence that anything can actually get done. And they've lost trust in the ability of both government and big business to change course. Now, we can blame historic forces beyond our control for some of this, but the choices we've made as a nation, leaders and citizens alike, have also played a big role. Our next president must work with Congress and every other willing partner across our entire country. And I will do just that. to turn the tide so these currents start working for us more than against us. At our best, that's what Americans do. We're problem solvers, not deniers. We don't hide from change, we harness it. But we can't do that if we go back to the top-down economic policies that failed us before. Americans have come too far to see our progress ripped away. Now, there may be some new voices in the presidential Republican choir, but they're all singing the same old song. A song called Yesterday. You know the one. All our troubles look as though they're here to stay, and we need a place to hide away. They believe in yesterday. And you're lucky I didn't try singing that, too, I'll tell you. These Republicans trip over themselves, promising lower taxes for the wealthy and fewer rules for the biggest corporations, without regard for how that will make income inequality even worse. We've heard this tune before, and we know how it turns out. Ask many of these candidates about climate change, one of the defining threats of our time. And they'll say, "I'm not a scientist." Well, then why don't they start listening to those who are? They pledge to wipe out tough rules on Wall Street rather than rein in the banks that are still too risky, courting future failures in a case that can only be considered mass amnesia. They want to take away health insurance from more than 16 million Americans without any credible alternative. They shame and blame women rather than respect our right to make our own reproductive health decisions. They want to put immigrants who work hard and pay taxes at risk of deportation, and they turn their backs on gay people who love each other. Fundamentally, they reject what it takes to build an inclusive economy. It takes an inclusive society. What I once called a village that has a place for everyone. Now, my values and a lifetime of experiences have given me a different vision for America. I believe that success isn't measured by how much the wealthiest Americans have, but by how many children climb out of poverty. How many startups and small businesses open and thrive? How many young people go to college without drowning in debt? How many people find a good job? How many families get ahead and stay ahead? I didn't learn this from politics. I learned it from my own family. My mother taught me that everybody needs a chance and a champion. She knew what it was like not to have either one. Her own parents abandoned her, and by 14, she was out on her own, working as a housemaid. Years later, when I was old enough to understand, I asked what kept her going. You know what her answer was? Something very simple. Kindness from someone who believed she mattered. the first-grade teacher who saw she had nothing to eat at lunch and without embarrassing her, brought extra food to share. The woman whose house she cleaned, letting her go to high school so long as her work got done. That was a bargain she leapt to accept. And because some people believed in her, she believed in me. That's why I believe with all my heart in America and in the potential of every American to meet every challenge, to be resilient no matter what the world throws at you, to solve the toughest problems. I believe we can do all these things because I've seen it happen. As a young girl, I signed up at my Methodist church to babysit the children of Mexican farm workers while their parents worked in the fields on the weekends. And later, as a law student, I advocated for Congress to require better working and living conditions for farm workers whose children deserved better opportunities. My first job out of law school was for the Children's Defense Fund. I walked door to door to find out how many children with disabilities couldn't go to school, and to help build the case for a law guaranteeing them access to education. As a leader of the Legal Services Corporation, I defended the right of poor people to have a lawyer, and I saw lives changed because an abusive marriage ended or an illegal eviction stopped. In Arkansas, I supervised law students who represented clients in courts and prisons, organized scholarships for single parents going to college, led efforts for better schools and health care, and personally knew the people whose lives were improved. As senator, I had the honor of representing brave firefighters, police officers, EMTs, construction workers, and volunteers who ran toward danger on 9/11 and stayed there, becoming sick themselves. It took years of effort, but Congress finally approved the health care they needed. There are so many faces and stories that I carry with me of people who gave their best and then needed help themselves. Just weeks ago, I met another person like that, a single mom, juggling a job and classes at community college while raising 3 kids. She doesn't expect anything to come easy, but she did ask me what more can be done so it isn't quite so hard for families like hers. I want to be her champion and your champion. If you'll give me the chance, I'll wage and win 4 fights for you. The first is to make the economy work for everyday Americans, not just those at the top. To make the middle class mean something again, with rising incomes and broader horizons, and to give the poor a chance to work their way into it. The middle class needs more growth and more fairness. Growth and fairness go together. For lasting prosperity, you can't have one without the other. Is this possible in today's world? Yes. I believe it is, or I wouldn't be standing here. Do I think it will be easy? Of course not. But here's the good news. There are allies for change everywhere who know we can't stand by while inequality increases, wages stagnate, and the promise of America dims. We should welcome the support of all Americans who want to go forward together with us. There are public officials who know Americans need a better deal, business leaders who want higher pay for employees, equal pay for women, and no discrimination against the LGBT community either. There are leaders of finance who want less short-term trading and more long-term investing. There are union leaders who are investing their own pension funds in putting people to work to build tomorrow's economy. We need everyone to come to the table and work with us. In the coming weeks, I'll propose specific policies to reward businesses who invest in long-term value rather than the quick buck, because that leads to higher growth for the economy, higher wages for workers, and yes, bigger profits. Everybody will have a better time. I will rewrite the tax code so it rewards hard work and investments here at home, not quick trades or stashing profits overseas. I will give new incentives to companies that give their employees a fair share of the profits their hard work earns. We will unleash a new generation of entrepreneurs and small business owners by providing tax relief, cutting red tape, and making it easier to get a small business loan. We will restore America to the cutting edge of innovation, science, and research by increasing both public and private investments. And we will make America the clean energy superpower of the 21st century. Developing renewable power, wind, solar, advanced biofuels, building cleaner power plants, smarter electric grids, greener buildings, using additional fees and royalties from fossil fuel extraction to protect the environment and ease the transition for distressed communities to a more diverse and sustainable economic future, from coal country to Indian country, from small towns in the Mississippi Delta to the Rio Grande Valley to our inner cities. We have to help our fellow Americans. Now, this will create millions of jobs and countless new businesses and enable America to lead the global fight against climate change. We will also connect workers to their jobs and businesses. Customers will have a better chance to actually get where they need and get what they desire, with roads, railways, bridges, airports, ports, and broadband brought up to global standards for the 21st century. We will establish an infrastructure bank and sell bonds to pay for some of these improvements. Now, building an economy for tomorrow also requires investing in our most important asset, our people, beginning with our youngest. That's why I will propose that we make preschool and quality childcare available to every child in America. And I want you to remember this, because to me, this is absolutely the most compelling argument why we should do this. Research tells us how much early learning in the first 5 years of life can impact lifelong success. In fact, 80% of your brain is developed by age 3. And one thing I've learned is that talent is universal. You can find it anywhere, but opportunity is not. Too many of our kids never have the chance to learn and thrive as they should and as we need them to. Our country won't be competitive or fair if we don't help more families give their kids the best possible start in life. So let's staff our primary and secondary schools with teachers who are second to none in the world and receive the respect they deserve for sparking the love of learning in every child. Let's make college affordable and available to all and lift the crushing burden of student debt. Let's provide lifelong learning for workers to gain or improve skills that the economy requires, setting up many more Americans for success. Now, the second fight is to strengthen America's families, because when our families are strong, America is strong. And today's families face new and unique pressures. Parents need more support and flexibility to do their job at work and at home. I believe you should have the right to earn paid sick days. I believe you should receive your work schedule with enough notice to arrange childcare or take college courses to get ahead. I believe you should look forward to retirement with confidence, not anxiety. That you should have the peace of mind that your health care will be there when you need it without breaking the bank. I believe we should offer paid family leave so no one has to choose between keeping a paycheck and caring for a new baby or a sick relative. And it is way past time to end the outrage of so many women still earning less than men on the job. And women of color often making even less. This isn't a women's issue. It's a family issue, just like raising the minimum wage is a family issue. Expanding child care is a family issue. Declining marriage rates is a family issue. The unequal rates of incarceration is a family issue. Helping more people with an addiction or a mental health problem get help is a family issue. In America, every family should feel like they belong. So we should offer hardworking, law-abiding immigrant families a path to citizenship. Not second-class status. And we should ban discrimination against LGBT Americans and their families so they can live, learn, marry, and work just like everybody else. You know, America's diversity, our openness, our devotion to human rights and freedom is what's drawn so many to our shores, what's inspired people all over the world. I know, I've seen it with my own eyes. And these are also the qualities that prepare us well for the demands of a world that is more interconnected than ever before. So we have a third fight, to harness all of America's power, smarts, and values to maintain our leadership for peace, security, and prosperity. No other country on earth is better positioned to thrive in the 21st century. No other country is better equipped to meet traditional threats from countries like Russia, North Korea, and Iran, and to deal with the rise of new powers like China. No other country is better prepared to meet emerging threats from cyber attacks, transnational terror networks like ISIS, and diseases that spread across oceans and continents. As your president, I'll do whatever it takes to keep Americans safe. And if you look over my left shoulder, you can see the new World Trade Center soaring skyward. As a senator from New York, I dedicated myself to getting our city and state the help we needed to recover. And as a member of the Armed Services Committee, I worked to maintain the best trained, best equipped, strongest military, ready for today's threats and tomorrow's. And when our brave men and women come home from war or finish their service, I'll see to it that they get not just the thanks of a grateful nation, but the care and benefits they've earned. I've stood up to adversaries like Putin and reinforced allies like Israel, and I was in the Situation Room on the day we got bin Laden. But I know we have to be smart as well as strong. Meeting today's global challenges requires every element of America's power, including skillful diplomacy, economic influence, and building partnerships to improve lives around the world with people, not just their governments. There are a lot of trouble spots in the world, but there's a lot of good news out there, too. I believe the future holds far more opportunities than threats if we exercise creative and confident leadership that enables us to shape global events rather than be shaped by them. And we all know that in order to be strong in the world, we first have to be strong at home. That's why we have to win the fourth fight, reforming our government and revitalizing our democracy so that it works for everyday Americans. We have to stop the endless flow of secret, unaccountable money that is distorting our elections, corrupting our political process, and drowning out the voices of our people. We need justices on the Supreme Court who will protect every citizen's right to vote, rather than every corporation's right to buy elections. If necessary, I will support a constitutional amendment to undo the Supreme Court's decision in Citizens United. I want to make it easier for every citizen to vote. That's why I've proposed universal automatic registration and expanded early voting. I'll fight back against Republican efforts to disempower and disenfranchise young people, poor people, people with disabilities, and people of color. What part of democracy are they afraid of? But no matter how easy we make it to vote, we still have to give Americans something worth voting for. Government is never going to have all the answers, but it has to be smarter, simpler, more efficient, and a better partner. That means access to advanced technology so government agencies can more effectively serve their customers, the American people. We need expertise and innovation from the private sector to help cut waste and streamline services. There's so much that works in America. For every problem we face, someone, somewhere in America is solving it. Silicon Valley cracked the code on sharing and scaling a while ago. Many states are pioneering new ways to deliver services. I want to help Washington catch up. To do that, we need a political system that produces results by solving problems that hold us back, not one overwhelmed by extreme partisanship and inflexibility. Now, I'll always seek common ground with friend and opponent alike, but I'll also stand my ground when I must. That's something I did as Senator and Secretary of State, whether it was working with Republicans to expand health care for children and for our National Guard, or improve our foster care and adoption system, or pass a treaty to reduce the number of Russian nuclear warheads that could threaten our cities. And it is something I will always do as your president. We Americans may differ, bicker, stumble, and fall, but we are at our best when we pick each other up, when we have each other's back. Like any family, our American family is strongest when we cherish what we have in common and fight back against those who would drive us apart. People all over the world have asked me, how could you and President Obama work together after you fought so hard against each other in that long campaign? Now, that is an understandable question, considering that in many places, if you lose an election, you could get imprisoned or exiled, even killed, not hired as Secretary of State. But President Obama asked me to serve, and I accepted because we both love our country. That's how we do it in America. With that same spirit, together we can win these 4 fights. We can build an economy where hard work is rewarded. We can strengthen our families. We can defend our country and increase our opportunities all over the world. And we can renew the promise of our democracy if we all do our part in our families, in our businesses, unions, houses of worship, schools, and yes, in the voting booth. I want you to join me in this effort. Help me build this campaign and make it your own. Talk to your friends, your family, your neighbors. Text JOIN, J-O-I-N, to 47246. Go to HillaryClinton.com and sign up to make calls and knock on doors. It's no secret that we're going up against some pretty powerful forces that will do and spend whatever it takes to advance a very different vision for America. But I've spent my life fighting for children, families, and our country, and I'm not stopping now. Now, I know how hard this job is. I've seen it up close and personal. All our presidents come into office looking so vigorous. And then we watch their hair grow grayer and grayer. Well, I may not be the youngest candidate in this race, but I will be the youngest woman president in the history of the United States. And the first grandmother as well. And one additional advantage, you won't see my hair turn white in the White House. I've been coloring it for years. So, I'm looking for a great debate among Democrats, Republicans, and independents. I'm not running to be president only for those Americans who already agree with me. I want to be president for all Americans. And along the way, I'll just let you in on this little secret. I won't get everything right. Lord knows I've made my share of mistakes. Well, there's no shortage of people pointing them out. And I certainly haven't won every battle I've fought, but leadership means perseverance and hard choices. You have to push through the setbacks and the disappointments and keep at it. I think you know by now that I've been called many things by many people. Quitter is not one of them. Like so much else in my life, I got this from my mother. When I was a girl, she never let me back down from any bully or barrier. In her later years, Mom lived with us, and she was still teaching me the same lessons. I'd come home from a hard day at the Senate or the State Department, sit down with her at the small table in our breakfast nook, and just let everything pour out. And she would remind me why we keep fighting, even when the odds are long and the opposition is fierce. I can still hear her saying, life's not about what happens to you. It's about what you do with what happens to you. So get back out there. She lived to be 92 years old, and I often think about all the battles she witnessed over the course of the last century, all the progress that was won because Americans refused to give up or back down. She was born on June 4th, 1919, before women in America had the right to vote. But on that very day, after years of struggle, Congress passed the constitutional amendment that would change that forever. The story of America is a story of hard-fought, hard-won progress, and it continues today. New chapters are being written by men and women who believe that all of us, not just some, but all, should have the chance to live up to our God-given potential. Not only because we're a tolerant country or a generous country or a compassionate country, but because we're a better, stronger, more prosperous country when we harness the talent, hard work, and ingenuity of every single American. I wish my mother could have been with us longer. I wish she could have seen Chelsea become a mother herself. I wish she could have met Charlotte. I wish she could have seen the America we're going to build together. An America where if you do your part, you reap the rewards. Where we don't leave anyone out or anyone behind. An America where a father can tell his daughter, yes, you can be anything you want to be, even President of the United States. Thank you all. God bless you, and may God bless America.
Hillary Clinton there, Roosevelt Island there in her first big rally in what has now become her 10-week campaign. Her daughter Chelsea Clinton there, Bill Clinton there joining her on stage. And she said, you know, join me, text me even. She says she wants to be your champion. And she made references many times about her 92-year-old mother and her humble beginnings working as a child in domestic work, making reference to her grandfather and his work ethic, and of course making reference to her husband, former president, having the longest peacetime in history, balancing the budget, and then in an ode to her former boss, President Obama, also saying that he saved the auto industry and he provided health care to millions, and then many jabs to the Republican field there, the now very crowded Republican field, and she called it the Republican choir singing the same old song. Yesterday, also kind of criticizing the Republicans, saying they want to take away health care to the 16 million, and they're continuing, in her view, to shame women. And she said they're also turning their backs on gay people who love each other. She said she wants to continue what she's been doing her lifetime, spending a lifetime fighting for children and families. So a lot to chew on here with Hillary Clinton there in this large rally at Roosevelt Island. We've got a lot of people joining us to kind of digest and help us all understand what just happened there. Senior political correspondent Brianna Keeler is on Roosevelt Island. Senior Washington correspondent Jeff Zeleny is in Marshalltown, Iowa. CNN politics reporter Sarah Murray is in Park City, Utah. Everyone bear with me. We got a long list here. Political commentator Hillary Rosen is in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Political commentator Paul Begala in Washington. Senior political analyst Ron Brownstein in Los Angeles. And Larry Sabato, director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia in Charlottesville. Whew, okay, we've got a lot. A lot of people, a lot of voices, lots of points of view. Brianna, let me begin with you. You're traveling with Hillary Clinton there. You gave us a prelude of what to expect, and she hit all of that and some. Why was this so important for her to not only define herself, kind of help people relive her history as a law student, as a New York senator, as First Lady, and as Secretary of State?
Well, she really wants people to focus, I think, on her and her standing alone, not just on Bill Clinton, who you see now exiting the stage. And certainly she's done a lot in her own right, especially since she ran for president last time. But while there were references to her husband's administration, the people she really focused on in this speech, President Obama, embracing him, the Roosevelts as well, and certainly her mom a lot. But this is For Freedom's Park, which she harkened back to by laying out her 4 fights for the economy, for strengthening communities and families and dealing with family issues, national security, and also getting unaccountable money out of the political system. You heard some of the big applause lines having to do with the economy. Hillary Clinton is framing herself very much as a populist in sort of the vein of the Roosevelts. A lot of people, I will tell you, the campaign believes very strongly that it's economic issues that are really going to motivate Democratic and independent voters. From the applause here, I would say that's an accurate assessment. She talked about national security, and honestly, it didn't seem like anything that really got this crowd too riled up. They were more concerned about equal pay and higher wages when she mentioned those items, and also on social issues like discrimination against gay Americans. But I do want to mention that last thing that she talked about, the unaccountable money. This is really the one, not the one, but an issue that could cause some problems for her, Fred, because there are polls lately. This is a difficult spot for Hillary Clinton, something she needs to deal with, showing that a lot of Americans think that she's not trustworthy and honest. And part of that is certainly coming from all of this coverage of the Clinton Foundation, the donations that the Clinton Foundation has gotten. So that's something she'll need to address. But this is, after 2 months of being on the campaign trail, her big kickoff rally. And from here, she goes to early states.
All right. Well, let's talk more about this. Perhaps among those who may have gotten to know Hillary Clinton the best over the years, Hillary Rosen and Paul Begala. So I'm anxious to hear from you all. You know, Paul in particular, while people thought that this would be a rally, or her campaign would largely be about distinguishing herself as an independent from Bill Clinton, independent from the Obama administration, she in a very big way talked about the relationship and what she really is praising of those administrations, and, you know, answering the question of what people ask her all the time. How is it that you and President Obama could work together when you were adversaries on the campaign trail, how you were contenders, but now you're contemporaries? And her words, quite simply, she says, because we both love country. Why is this important for her to establish right off the bat, in your view, Paul?
Well, because first off, I think it's honest. She actually likes the president. She served him, and I think served him well. Second, it is strategic, right? You don't want to be running away from him. It would be a disaster, I think, to serve in the Obama administration as his Secretary of State and then run away and say, well, I barely knew the guy. I think that's wise. Now, she also said, hearkening back to Roosevelt and her husband and President Obama, that this is not 1941 or 1993 or 2009. She's her own person. The thing that struck me the most, though, Fred, was that this is very personal for Hillary. She doesn't like that, believe me. I know her 24 years. she's not a person who wears her heart on her sleeve the way her husband does. Okay, she talked about her mother. She never used to do that when I worked for President Clinton in the 90s.
So why did this seem that it came so easy if this has been so difficult for her over the years? Is it a reflection of, I want this job really badly, or does it say something about the evolution of Hillary Clinton, in your view?
Yeah, you know, she lost her mother, and I think that changed a lot. And I think it caused her to reflect on how far her mom had come and how much her mother had meant to her, just like any of us who've lost a parent or a grandparent. I think that those two events in her personal life, gaining a grandchild, losing her mother, I think that has really opened her heart more. She's just not a politician who likes her emotions being out there on display. I got to tell you, I know she has the same last name as her husband, but her personality as a candidate is very different. So I loved seeing her open up more. And that's the real Hillary I've known now for a quarter century.
So Hillary Rodham, we really did see on stage there a very compassionate Hillary Clinton, right? I mean, as an extension of what Paul is saying there, she talked so much about what she wants to do for families, what she wants to do for law-abiding immigrant families, what she wants to do to make sure that all kids have an opportunity from preschool to college.
Yeah, two things struck me about the speech in addition to what Paul said. One was that there was a lot of policy meat in there. For days, the aides have been downplaying how much policy to expect in this speech. I now suspect that was before Hillary Clinton got a hold of the draft, because we all know at her heart she actually is kind of a policy wonk, and she wanted people to know what she thought about the major issues we're facing today. And then the second thing, I think, was at the end, where she said, I'm not going to always get it right. I'm going to make mistakes. Lord knows I've made them before. And, you know, I thought that was kind of a signal to everybody, which is this is a long campaign. You can pick stuff apart, but I am not a quitter. I am going to stay in there. My mom didn't raise me to be a quitter. And I thought that connecting the sort of political issues she's facing now with where she gets her grit is something that's really important for people to know.
Ron Brownstein, did she in any way kind of change the game, particularly for Jeb Bush, who is going to make it official next week? There was a lot of criticism, right, from Republicans who said she's not talking issues. And just as Hillary just underscored, she talked issues. She talked ideas. Is Jeb Bush and, you know, his team, are they now kind of readdressing that speech that he is to make on Tuesday? Or are they now kind of rethinking how much he needs to reveal about ideas, about thoughts?
Well, look, I think, excuse me, Fred, I think she reframed, she certainly gave Republicans a strong indication of what the frame is going to be on this race. As Hillary said, she gave us more policy than we expected. She also spoke more directly about gender than she did in 2008. But above all, this speech was designed to identify her as someone who would fight for the middle class because she was a product of the middle class. Most younger Americans have only known Hillary Clinton in a series of very powerful positions: First Lady, Senator from New York, Secretary of State. I think the biggest question the hurdle she has to get over is convincing people she understands the way they live today and has solutions relevant to their problems. And the way she tried to do that today was by saying, look, I have lived this experience, and that's why I will fight so hard for you. And by the way, that is very similar to the message that a guy named Bill Clinton delivered at his 1992 acceptance speech, in a speech that was heavily influenced by someone named Bagala, I think. It was a very similar kind of framing. I will fight for you because I have walked in your shoes. And I think that's what we saw from Hillary Clinton today.
Larry Sabato, what did you see on display here?
Launch. It was certainly comprehensive. I counted more than 35 specific topics and proposals in this rather long address. So I think it did answer the critics as far as policy was concerned. What struck me most, she's framing the campaign, as a candidate should in this kind of launch, as a fight for the middle class. And you can never lose basing a campaign on fighting for the middle class, because 80% of Americans claim to be in the middle class. And then, of course, gender. As she pointed out a number of times, she can provide a spotlight on gender issues that no other candidate can, and obviously she would be the first woman president if elected.
And Jeff Zeleny, she made reference to equal pay several times for women. She made reference several times for the end of discrimination to the LGBT community. How significant is that? I mean, it must speak to her journey upcoming that she would make reference particularly to those issues several times.
Well, sure, Frederica, those are very safe issues at this point to make reference to in this 2012 campaign, but it really speaks to how far the Democratic electorate and, in fact, the nation has moved since 2007 and 2008. Don't forget, she and others, and she and Barack Obama, were not supportive of gay marriage at that point. So that's how far this electorate has shifted. I was struck by the fact that she is now free to embrace all of those things. You know, really the sign of the cross of the Obama coalition. She went right through every liberal sort of point here. This is not the Bill Clinton campaign of 1992 going down the center trying to win over some red states. She is trying to double down on winning the Obama states, if you will, the Obama coalition. But I have to say, Frederica, I was struck by, as Hillary mentioned earlier, her humor and humility at the end. That's not something we saw a lot from her in 2008, but that is something that people say that they liked the most about her in those private settings. When she said, "I won't get everything right, I've been called many things, but quitter is not one of them." That will be the anthem of her campaign, and that's what Democrats want to hear from. We heard some specific, of course, but I think it's things like that that people will are really going to latch onto. That's what Democrats want to hear.
Was there a feeling that perhaps even within her camp there was a push, you know, that she would show that kind of humor, that she would be self-deprecating, because in many ways it's rather disarming?
Sure, I think in some respect the shackles are off of her. Everyone learns something from running for president a second time, so she is trying to do this her own way. And I think that you know, in 2007, 2008, she was guided by a whole different team of strategists. I think now this is sort of more of her own stamp on things here. But the real question is here, is the enthusiasm going to be out there for Democrats? I'm at a watch party here in Iowa, and Frederica, only 6 people, which includes one staffer, were actually at it. Maybe people were watching at home, I'm not sure, but at this one party we picked randomly, only 6 people were inside watching it here in Marshalltown, Iowa.
Oh, that's funny. Hashtag Hillary House Party. So what were people saying at that watch party? I mean, not the one person who's with her campaign, but the other just ordinary folks. What were they saying about what they saw, heard, felt?
Look, they're excited about her candidacy. In fact, they want to see and hear more from her. And of course, she is flying to Iowa after she finishes her rally there. She'll be at a party tonight in Sioux City, Iowa, and then at her big first Iowa rally tomorrow. But Democrats want to hear specifics, and she's not out here alone. I can tell you, Senator Bernie Sanders is also having a day of activities out here, and he is drawing hundreds and hundreds of people to his events here. So she has a bit of competition. She wants to, Democrats want her to show that she will fight for this nomination here. So in short, Fred, they just want to hear more and see more from her.
Ah, interesting. Okay, well, those images of that house party or watch party, I don't know, looking kind of pitiful, not really very exciting and boisterous, but it was happening nonetheless. And like you said, maybe a lot of people were kind of watching at home and I guess exuded their sentiments in different ways, Jeff. All right, so let's go to Sarah Murray, because Sarah, you were in Utah at a Mitt Romney event. I go to you last because, of course, you know, many people were kind of painting the picture of what her advocates are seeing in her speech. She made some direct references to her competitors, her Republican competitors. She said that, you know, they're singing the same song, this Republican choir of yesteryear and yesterday. So what was the response there, particularly as Jeb Bush is about to, you know, officially announce his campaign on Monday next week?
So clearly this is a very different event than what you're seeing Hillary Clinton do today. What this is essentially a moment for half a dozen Republican presidential candidates to mingle with donors who helped Mitt Romney raise money and try to lock him in on their campaigns. But the thing that donors really want to see is they want to see someone who can win. And so what we heard from these candidates over this weekend were a lot of sharp words for Hillary Clinton. We saw Marco Rubio try to make this generational contrast with Hillary Clinton. Ohio Governor John Kasich was very clear that you can't take down Hillary Clinton just by attacking the Clintons. You need to bring someone with a record to go up against her. And this morning we heard from Carly Fiorina, who offers a very interesting contrast to Hillary. She is another woman who's up against her, and she made a sort of dubious claim today that she has more foreign policy experience than anyone else in the Republican field, and she's met with nearly as many foreign leaders as Hillary Clinton has. So it's sort of interesting to see all these Republicans line up the different ways they plan to take on Hillary Clinton going forward.
All right. So Paul Begala, Hillary, I want to bring you back in the conversation. Ron Brownstein. In any way, do you believe that the campaign trail is now changing. The trajectory of the campaign trail, whether it be Democrats, Republican, has changed now because the way in which she has rolled out this large campaign rally, especially at a time where she began it with such intimacy, kind of small meetings, get to know people, and now she is saying, oh, I am really officially in a very big way. Hillary, you first on that.
Well, that's why she did this rally today, because she has been campaigning mostly just to deal with the early states. She, entered this race saying she's not taking the Democratic primary for granted, and that means Iowa. And what do you do to win in Iowa? You go to small meetings. You don't hold big rallies. You don't hold big events because people want intimacy. That means New Hampshire, where you're having policy discussions behind closed doors. So they knew at the campaign that there was a clamoring in the country for sort of this bigger picture of Hillary's candidacy. That's what today was intended to do. I think we're going to see her over the next couple of months kind of go back to that more intimate campaigning, because that's what is required in those early states. Yes, she's going to come out with some policy pronouncement speeches. Those might be big moments. But for the most part, her time is going to be spent doing the kind of campaigning that's required to win that Democratic primary.
Larry Sabato, you're back with us as well. How do you see it?
Yes, I can.
Look, the enthusiasm of the campaign is what's important. Nobody ever believes the statistic, but it's absolutely true. Over 90% of the votes for 2016 are already locked in. We live in a highly partisan age. And the real key for Hillary Clinton and the eventual Republican nominee, and I'm assuming Hillary Clinton gets a Democratic nomination, is energizing and enthusing the party activists and the party voters. And I think, her launch did some of that. Certainly the issues that she brought up did, and I'm sure she'll flesh them out more as time goes on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Hey, with us right now, Hillary Clinton's press secretary is there on Roosevelt Island, and he's now stepped in front of a camera. Brian Fallon with us. Hey, Brian.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing great. So give us an idea, how difficult was this for Hillary Clinton to be so personal, to show the kind of humor we saw, to be so self-deprecating, to reveal so much more about her family history, her family struggles? Was this something that was her idea, or was this something that you and others in her campaign really had to urge her to do? Was it a big risk for her to take?
Not at all. Not at all. She wrote this speech herself. She had some assistance from her longtime chief speechwriter, Dan Schwerin, but she wrote this speech herself, Frederica, and this was very personal. I think she wanted to let the American people know what was motivating her to take on this fight and enter this race at this moment in her career. And she was very clear about that reason. She believes that it's the middle-class, everyday Americans that help rebuild this economy and get us back from the recession from 2008, but they haven't yet been able to enjoy all the rewards of that recovery. And that's what this fight is going to be about. She has spoken very personal terms about how the life story of her mother is what inspired her to realize that every person needs a champion, needs the assistance of friends and neighbors to help make it, and that's what she's in this fight for. And I think you also heard her not just be personal, but be quite substantive and lay out a strong, bold, progressive agenda that she will fill in over the coming weeks. She talked about college affordability, paid leave, Wall Street reform, and in the coming weeks, almost at a pace of once every week or 10 days, I think you're going to hear her roll out specific policies on each of those issues.
And Brian, I know it's a party scene there. We love that it's, hashtag Hillary House Party, in a real reference to this rally today. And the music is loud. So I'm going to have to ask you, as we're going to try and pump up your volume, but I'm going to have to ask you to talk a little louder too. So talk to me about,
well, that's our
talk to me about who she's trying to reach, because she made several references about equal pay for women. She made several references about ending discrimination in the LGBT community. I mean, this is a real concerted effort to reach a certain body of the electorate. She talked about, trying to create a pathway for illegal immigrant families, but those who are law-abiding. How high up on this list of her to-do list is this?
So I would answer a little differently, actually, Frederica. I think what the policy list and the priorities that she outlined, I think what they speak to is a recognition of the changing makeup of the American family.
and on issues like LGBT equality, the importance of immigration, the importance of equal pay. These are not issues that speak to quote-unquote Democratic voters. These are mainstream issues that the American public is squarely on the side of. And I think it's more of a commentary on how out of touch the Republican field is, that these are still controversies in 2015.
Okay, so Brian, as I let you go, is this a prelude to how we will see Hillary Clinton on the campaign trail, much larger settings, or will there be a return to the smaller settings that we saw in the first 10 weeks of her campaign?
You're going to see a mix in terms of the style of event, but certainly you'll see a larger event in Iowa tomorrow. We have a lot of enthusiasm right now. There were watch parties for this speech all across the country. Tonight, Hillary Clinton will actually be dialing into an organizing meeting in Iowa. She'll be there in person participating, and then we will have similar meetings happening in all 435 congressional districts across the country to energize those supporters of Hillary Clinton. And then coming on into New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, I think you will see high-spirited, high-energy events.
Fantastic. All right, Brian Fallon, thanks so much for taking the time. Press Secretary for Hillary Clinton. Appreciate it. Glad you stepped in front of the camera for us. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.